Well, you hear a lot about it, but is there such a thing as a deep state? You bet there is. And though it's been around a long time, it's never been as obvious, as identifiable, or as desperate as it is now. Now, the deep state is not really so much left or right, conservative or liberal. No, it's more about protecting the self-serving institutions of government at all cost. And the reason it wasn't obvious, or that you never really heard much about a shadow government that really ran things, was because no one had ever threatened their power. Administrations came and went, both Democrat and Republican. And for all the fiery rhetoric during an election, only minor policy changes ever took place within administrations. The notable exception was the more disruptive policies during the Reagan administration that actually were successful in ending the Cold War. Not just ending it, but winning it. Now, the experts of foreign policy then, they hated Reagan. They sought to undermine his aggressive stance against communism. And frankly, behind the scenes, they leaked stories to the media to make it appear that Reagan was a dangerous, ignorant cowboy that were going to cause America to get into a nuclear war. But his 8 years were actually the most peaceful in several generations. And his instincts to defeat communism, rather than to merely coexist with it, proved to be right. Donald Trump represented a very real and a different kind of threat to the deep state establishment. In the past, even a president with clear principles was still dependent upon the same donor pool to get elected and stay elected. And the donor pool that funds the status quo has typically been able to keep things pretty much the same, regardless if the leaders are Democrat or Republican. It was good business for what President Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. Well, along comes Donald Trump, who funded his own campaign with his own money. He's the first president in my lifetime to get nominated and elected without being owned and obligated to the mega donors of the D.C. power circle and the special interests that they represent. That independence is a clear and present danger to the swamp rats of Washington, and they are fighting back with a vengeance. So when you see a parade of diplomats or military people on Trump-hating CNN or other media outlets, never forget that an underlying mandate of our constitutional republic is that the ultimate power is to be vested with we, the people. There is a glaring reason that a civilian president is the commander-in-chief of the military, and that foreign policy is solely vested in the president, not in the career bureaucrats and diplomats of the State Department. No one, and I mean no one, elected the bureaucrats or the government employees or even the generals to make policy decisions. You see, our founders wanted the power to wage war and to deal with foreign governments to be led by those elected by and therefore accountable to the people. Anything else, we'd be ruled by unelected and unknown bosses who didn't choose to stand for election. And because President Trump has openly defied conventional norms for conducting military and foreign policy, the entire deep state has come undone. No one has ever threatened their ironclad control, and they're going berserk to preserve and to protect their kingdom at the expense of yours. So just remember this one important truth. The deep state hates Donald Trump. They will stop at nothing to impeach him, defeat him, and destroy him. But what they really fear is that you will find out about them and demand that the deep state gets dismantled and that we have a government that really does exist for and which serves we, the people. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.